What's up guys? Welcome back to another video. I'm out here wrenching on the Z on a Friday night, and I am really excited because I actually have this weekend off, which is a rare thing for me. And that means I'm gonna spend a whole bunch of time wrenching on this thing. And with some luck, maybe we'll get a first start. So get excited for that. Let's jump straight into it. So we start this video off back here on the subframe again. I just wanted to show off the Bell Raceworks diff mount. I know I showed it in another video, but I didn't show it installed. This thing is super sweet. Back end of this car is pretty much buttoned up. I also added a hanger here for the exhaust, so it's solid now. I do need to yank this axle out and replace this boot because it is destroyed. I've never replaced boots on an axle, so hopefully it's not too bad of a job, but I am gonna yank the axle out real quick. With the axle out on the workbench, I got the old boot off and it's cleaned up, ready for the new boot to go on. Well, once I figure out how to do that. We're gonna pick back up tomorrow with that and with a whole bunch of other things. Good morning. It's the freaking weekend, which means we've got tons of time to wrench on this thing and a ton of things to get done. I've got my little to-do list over here. A lot of stuff on there. I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch. And I've got the axle over here. This is the first job we're gonna tackle, so let's jump straight into that. Okay, well, I don't know if you saw that, but this little ring was in this cup here. Pop this out with a little screwdriver, and then the whole axle and this assembly comes out, and these balls will just start to fall right out. And now we have to get this little carrier guy off. All right, so we've got it all apart here. I tried to film this, getting this snap ring off here. It goes right at the end of the shaft, and that's what holds this spline piece on along with this carrier. So I got that off, it's all apart. Got my balls nice and clean.
Got him! Got him!
Wiped out the old grease in here, cleaned all this up, and now we're ready to put the new boot on, put some new grease in here, and get this axle back together. All right, well, that was going smooth until it wasn't. Got it all back together. It actually went together really easily. It looks great, but you'll notice this clamp is not like this clamp. So this one fits perfectly, great. This one, or rather the one that it came with, did not fit at all. It was way too small to even get close to clamping. So I had to improvise and used a hose clamp. Doesn't look great, but really there's no reason it shouldn't work. So I'm gonna call this job done and get this axle back in the car. With that axle in, we can finally say the rear end is done. Let's check that off the list. Nothing beats OEM parts. This guy right here is the fuel line. It's all one piece with the fuel pressure regulator on there, so I had to buy that again. I'll toss that on next. And then this guy is actually a cool little part. I'm gonna be deleting the factory oil warmer. It's like a coolant hose that runs through the oil filter housing. I'm gonna be removing that whole unit, all the lines attached to it, and just replacing it with that guy so I can just thread an oil filter on like normal. There's really no reason to have an oil warmer. I don't live in a super cold area. And even if I did, the car is gonna be a track car, so I don't want my oil to get warmer than it needs to. We're making some serious progress here. We've got the PCV lines figured out. Thankfully, I ordered these a while ago. If you remember my unboxing of the Z1 Motorsports box, these were in there. I didn't realize they were the PCV hoses. Well, I forgot, but they're there. I got this one figured out. Well, it's not on, but it's figured out. This guy is on. It's time to get the upper part of the intake manifold on. One thing I bought a while ago and haven't really shown is this intake manifold plenum spacer. This is just a generic, like China one. I think it's made of Delrin or some kind of reinforced plastic. So let's toss this thing on. The intake manifold is finally on. Plenum spacers in there, looking good. Got all these shiny new bolts on. This thing is sweet. Starting to look like a real engine. One of the jobs I wanted to tackle was getting rid of this factory oil heater. So basically these two lines right here run through this sandwich plate. They actually run coolant through it to heat the oil up faster, I guess, for something to do with emissions and people that live in cold weather. Well, I don't really live in cold weather, and I definitely don't want my oil heated up more than it needs to be. So we're gonna be removing this. Actually, I already kind of have. Plus you can see this line right here is split. So I'd rather just get rid of this thing. But it was pretty easy to remove. This big stud runs through it. You can see it's just a, I think it's a 21 mil, 22, something like that. Just unthread that right out of the block, disconnect the two coolant lines, and then we'll just yank this guy right on out, just like that. With the sandwich plate out of the way, you'll notice that this just looks like a normal area where you would put an oil filter, except it's missing the stud that the filter screws onto, which is what this guy is. If you remember, I showed you this a little earlier. There's the part number for anybody curious. This is the stud, well, for the oil filter to screw onto. I believe this is off Maxima or something like that. Like I said, that's the part number if you need it. Let's get this thing out of here and onto the car. All right, installation is pretty straightforward. That's just a 12 mil Allen that goes right in there if that threads in normally. And now we've got a place to put our oil filter just like a normal car. And now you can see we've got an oil filter on there looking totally normal. It's not job done though, because you can see this sandwich plate has two big coolant lines, including this metal one. So we do now have two open coolant ports that we have to take care of. Something else I was tinkering on a little earlier was getting this jumper wire in. So this goes from, you can't really see much down there, but that little blue connector there, that switch is somehow in charge of the original neutral safety switch for the automatic transmission. So you know how automatic cars won't let you, wow, this lens is filthy, hold on. Okay, hopefully that's better. But so in automatic cars, it won't let you start the car unless it's in park or neutral. Well, because I'm switching the car over to a manual, I need to bypass that, and that's what this little wire is in here, that one down there. So I just ran this blue wire up and over to the ignition fuse. It's actually on the power side. You can't really see because I kind of jammed it in there. Also, you may notice that those guys are cut. That's because those two are in charge of our traction control system, which is for some fun we'll have later. All right, so this coolant line right here is one of the ones that ran across into that oil filter sandwich plate. So I'm gonna show you a really pretty much free and kind of lazy way to do a block off for something like this. All right, well, all I did was trim the line, found a bolt big enough that it barely fit in the hose. The trick here is to get a bolt so big that you actually have to thread it into the rubber hose to get it to fit. And then I just used the original clamp. Does this look great? No. Will it leak? Probably not. But really it's not permanent. Eventually I'd like to get one of my friends that knows how to weld aluminum. I'll just pull this hose off and have him weld up this actual hole up here. But for now, this will do the job. This is always an exciting moment. Putting oil in for the first time. Also, no funnel gang. Drop it in the comments if you don't use a funnel on your oil changes. Little tip there, when I was pouring the oil in, I only poured in maybe 1.5 quarts, 2 at the most. Since this is the first time I'm putting fluids in this car, I don't want to just fill it right up all the way. I want to make sure there's no crazy leaks anywhere, like I forgot to put the drain plug in or something stupid like that. I would hate to pour 4 quarts in the thing or 6 quarts and have it leak all over the floor. So I put a few in, like I said, 1.5 quarts, maybe 2. Now I'm gonna check for leaks, see if there's anything leaking, if there's anything catastrophically wrong, and then go from there. This is so exciting. Check this out. All right, cross your fingers. Well, kind of expected that. There's still a lot of loose ends for me to tie up. I was just kind of being hopeful and thought, let's see what happens. But turn the key, nothing happens. So hey, at least we've got power. That's definitely a good sign we're moving in the right direction. But I am gonna call it a night here and we're gonna pick this back up tomorrow morning. So I'll catch you guys then. All right, I'm under the car here and messing with the starter. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see. So this is a starter solenoid right here. I was just testing for power and it's got power. And then I was looking around and realized that this is a better angle. This plug was not plugged in at all. So I just plugged that in. Let's see if that was the missing link here. Man, I'm so happy and so relieved that it runs. This is so exciting. And it sounded pretty good too. It sounded like it was at least running on all cylinders and I didn't hear anything too catastrophic, so that's good. As you saw, I didn't run it for too long. Obviously, there's no coolant. There's still some other things I have to button up. So I'm gonna work on that now, so hopefully we can get this thing running for a little bit longer and I can actually make sure it's good. All right, if you watch any automotive YouTubers, you guys know that everybody's been raving about these Valvoline gear oil bags because it's so much easier to put the oil into the trans or the diff or anything like that. This is my first time using them, so we're gonna give them a shot and see if they're what they're all cracked up to be. All right, well, I think you saw how easy that was. Those little Valvoline squeeze bags definitely lived up to the hype. That was the easiest trans fill I've ever done. Now I gotta do the same for the diff, so we can cross that off the list. Okay, I've been putting this job off for a while, but we gotta get these pedals out and get the clutch pedal in. That was not a very fun job, but got the pedal out and the brake booster. Apparently there's a difference between the manual and automatic brake booster. Let's check out the manual one now. I've got it in a box over here. So the original one that came out of the car is on the right. And this is the manual one that I bought online. They look identical. They're even the same, mostly the same part number, AM600, and then those little numbers at the end are different. AM600. Maybe I didn't need this after all. Oh well, either way it had to come out so I can get the clutch master in. So now we've got all this room to work with here. I'm gonna talk about that in a second. Okay, let's talk about this absolute heinous example of a hole in a firewall. So the previous owner really didn't do a lot of work to this car, but that is something that they did. They thought, oh, the first step of a manual swap is gonna be getting the clutch pedal in. And I don't know what they were using. Maybe like their teeth or something. Really though, what is that? A little something I'm working on here. So this clutch pedal came with a spring on it. If you know anything about 350Zs or 370Zs, they all come with these little springs on the clutch pedal, and it's to help the clutch return and basically make it easier to drive. But you lose a lot of clutch feel with that, and I don't really like that. So I removed the spring just by taking out this little like piston guy here. You can kind of see how it moves back and forth. So I just took the piston out, removed the spring, and then I put the piston back in just because I think it does help with some structure. I don't really know. But the spring's out. Now the clutch should feel like a normal clutch. All right, well, you can see the hole I cut versus the one they cut. If you're wondering why they're in such different positions, it's because the clutch pedal and master they were trying to use were aftermarket. It was just a universal kit, whereas I'm trying to use the OEM one. It still looks like I'm kind of way off on my positioning, but hey, let's find out. So it might be kind of hard to see there, but it does fit. It fits a little tight. So I already opened up this top hole. I'm gonna have to do the same with the bottom one, and maybe even this big one might need to open up just a bit. So, well, after a bit of fussing, it still doesn't quite fit perfect. You can see it just doesn't sit flush. It's not, the main hole for this guy isn't perfectly in the right spot, and I got the exact right size. I should have got like an 1/8 inch bigger, but we're almost there. You can see I kind of opened these holes up a bit to get a little wiggle room in here, and it's just about enough. All right, it's in. Looks pretty good. You see I put some aluminum tape up there over the previously drilled holes, so now we don't have a giant hole up in the firewall. Now let's toss the pedal on and see if it's anywhere near where it's supposed to be. Fingers crossed. All right, we've got 3 pedals. The clutch pedal's ever so slightly crooked, but really the height of it is right where it needs to be. Spacing seems correct. Other than it being a tiny bit crooked, I think it's pretty good. So I'm gonna take that as a win. Good morning, you guys. Happy Monday. I hope you had as good of a weekend as I did. I was scheduled off today and I had a lot planned to wrap up on the Z, but I just got called into work and I need that overtime for more car parts. But that is gonna be a wrap for the video. Like I said, I had planned to get a bit more done, but hey, it is what it is. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. I know I did. I'm so excited that the car runs. I feel like I'm a whole lot closer to getting this thing driving. So get excited, be subscribed if you're not already, because this thing is gonna get super fun once it's actually driving. Can't wait. Catch you guys in the next one. See ya.